Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Ruben Amarin promises to stick with the 3-4-3. There will be a new formation at Manchester United, there will be change, there will be no adaptation. Will we get success? We'll talk about that and where that's coming from. Also, we've got injury updates on who will be available for Ipswich. It's going to be too soon for a couple of players, but there are a few back. Also, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Rio Ferdinand saying that we should have kept him. It's a mistake to let him go. We've seen Casemiro, Garnacho and their social media posts really praising Ruud. Well, now certain ex-players are saying we should have kept him. Maybe that's not too much of a surprise. Also, we've got a bit of an update from Pedro, our sporting fan, who's given us some insights into what players he thinks will be adapted by Amorim. A little bit on Antony. I mean, there's stuff out on Antony this morning. It's complete and utter bollocks. It's made up sources bullshit from people who haven't got a clue what's going on. But we'll give you the latest on that. Also, a couple of other bits I want to talk about. Darren Fletcher, he will be staying. That's come out from Simon Stone as well. And the January transfer window, if I haven't mentioned that. So lots to get into on the show this morning. Plus anything you want to discuss or what is going to break. And what a show it was last night on the 8 o'clock show. Don't forget to tune into the 8 o'clock show this week. We've had some brilliant debates over previous international breaks and we've got some crackers coming up for you this week as well. Right, don't forget as well on Saturday it's my all-day charity stream raising money for people with terminal illness, so get involved in that. Right, let's go. So Fabrizio Romano again basically saying that Amorim will utilise the 3-4-3 system immediately. He will start with 3 centre-backs against Ipswich. This is the way we're going to go and that is why it's here we go. I don't think that should be coming across as a massive surprise to anybody, but when you take into consideration Rangnick tried his system for half an hour in the first game and then reverted to Ollie Ball. Ten Hag tried his system, didn't stick with it, reverted to a more simplistic style of football. Louis van Gaal tried it, reverted after the Leicester game to a more simplistic style of football. So we have had managers with what would be described as desirable styles of play. Ten Hag, Rangnick, Van Gaal, but they all abandoned them. They abandoned them very, very quickly. Many people would say logically, because they looked at the players and went, they can't do it. So let's go back to what they can do. But I'm tired of that. I'm not saying that those players were wrong to do it. They were, you look at Ten Hag's first 2 games, he tweaked things and we started to get results. We finished 3rd, we won 2 trophies. But my patience is running thin on that because it's short-term glory for long-term pain. I think every Manchester United manager we've had has been successful in the short term and in the long term has failed because they've abandoned their principles. I would rather have a situation in the short term where we fail, but in the long term we succeed. Every single manager at Man United has had short-term success where they get the best out of what they've got in a system that suits those players. But in the long term, they try and change things and they're always tied to that simplistic style of play, whether it's Jose, Ollie or Ten Hag. What I would like Amorim to do is go, this is how we're going to play. Yes, you're going to struggle, but I'm going to get rid of you and bring players in. So in the short term, it might not go well. We might not have the short-term success, but in the long term, we will. He cannot abandon what we brought him in for. I think it's intelligent from Ineos, and I think it's absolutely correct by Amorim. 3-4-3 is the way to go. That's what he's all about. And it's good to hear that that's what's going to happen because I've seen it online. I've seen it in this chat. Some people are worried. They're saying, no, maybe you should look at that in the future. For now, it's about results. Let's stick to a 4 at the back. Let's just get results. And I'm like, he's never played that. That's not what he is. That's not what we're bringing him for. We're bringing him for his system. Ruud's gone. Rennie Heck's gone. He's in charge. His people are coming in. And he has to be allowed to do that. So I think this is a real positive. I'm not for 1 second saying that it's not going to be bumpy. I hope it's not. I hope it works instantly. I hope these players instantly get to work with this system. But I'm expecting there to be bumps in the road and I'm okay with that. I said to you this a few days ago. I'd actually rather we didn't have a really good first year like we do with everybody else and then a crap second and third year. I'd rather have a bad first year and then a good second and third year. And I also think from Amorim's point of view, when you look at the media and the toxicity, even in the fan base, when managers come into a difficult job and do well at the start, that's the expectation. I think if a manager comes in and is realistic and goes, this is a mess, we're going to have a bad start, then there is no unrealistic expectation. So I'm hoping that's well, I'm not hoping. We are going to play a 3-4-3, and I hope that people can give it the patience it's clearly going to need. Patrick Lynch says, after how Ten Hag was treated by the media, I think the fans should be very wary of the media circus and bullshit that will follow Amorim, especially at the start. We need to be discerning about what is reported. Well, Patrick, I think you make a great point. Thanks very much for your super chat. But I know that this community isn't backwards in coming forwards. I know if I say something or someone in the chat says something, a debate will rage. You know what I think about the media. I think there are certain journalists that are reasonably good, and I think there are certain journalists and outlets that are absolutely toxic. We call them out because they need to be called out, because their sole focus is to sink Manchester United. It actually makes me laugh how certain people in our fan base are obsessed with fan content. Like, oh, we've got to stamp fan content out. I mean, what have you done for the last 20 years with TalkSport or TV or certain news outlets? Like, they're not even Man United fans. They are literally toxic around our football club, but we infight again. Oh, no, let's get rid of fan content. You can't even get rid of the Glazers. What are you going after fan content for? Because you failed with the Glazers? Why aren't you going after the Sun? Why aren't you going after TalkSport? You know, it just makes me laugh that, you know, people who actually care about the club, who might have a different opinion to you, oh, let's get rid of those. But let's leave the mainstream alone, who constantly cause this football club shit with, oh, I've heard this. Oh, I've heard this. Oh, I've heard this dressing room source. I've heard this. You know, we have. You're right, Patrick. We've got to be very, very careful of it. But look, I would say in relation to Amorim, I'll give you a little bit of an opinion, and you can obviously give yours. I said when Ten Hag came in, because everybody wanted Pochettino outside of the fan base, the majority of the fan base wanted Ten Hag. And I said, foreign coach, never managed in the Premier League before, hipster. British press won't like that. It's the same when you bring in someone like Martinez or De Ligt. Oh, he's not very strong, he's too small. The bias comes to the top, and you know the preconceived lies. I said they'll be nice to Ten Hag for a tiny little bit, and then they'll go for him. Remember that interview that Neville and Carragher gave to Ten Hag before he'd even managed the game? It's like he was on bloody trial. So the knives are out for him very quickly. I think because Amorim's got more of a personality, they will give him a little bit longer, but it will be there. They'll be waiting for him, and it will come. It will definitely come. And Ineos need to be prepared for that, because they will come for Amorim. Might take 6 months, might take a year, but they will come for him, because I don't actually think Amorim is what the media established archaic press actually want. I think they want a guy like Pochettino, who's been on the TV, who's well liked by the press, or, you know, they want someone that they've got, that they can get into, really. Ritwick says, what are your thoughts, Mark, on which players won't be able to succeed under Amorim? We did a whole show on it last night, Ritwick. We did a whole show on it last night, so I don't want to go back over that. And it's good for an 8 o'clock show. But I think, honestly, the players that will struggle with that show last night, where we were talking about Amorim wants to bring intensity. I think any player that's going to struggle to give a sustained intensity over the next 2 years has to be on the chopping board. Johnny Evans is too old. Harry Maguire gets injured and is getting older, and is he going to be able to deal with that? Luke Shaw, obviously, maybe Casemiro I think will be all right, but maybe looking longer term he might struggle. Eriksen, I don't think so. So those sort of players. And then you're going to get people saying Bruno, Rashford, etc. I think Mason Mount's one of the most interesting ones. Actually, injury updates, lots to get into today. Transfers and stuff as well. But I want to bring you the news. That's what we're here for. So injury updates coming in from good sources around Carrington again. Players back for Ipswich. We were expecting everybody back. Actually, that's not going to happen, because what happens is we have this misconception that the international break is longer than it is. We're playing Ipswich in a week on Sunday. So realistically, it's a week and a half away. Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, expected to be training properly next week, certainly Luke Shaw, but not ready to start a game against Ipswich. And same with Harry Maguire. It would need, we're being told it would need progression of epic proportion for Maguire and Luke Shaw to be considered to start against Ipswich. So those two look like they're going to be a little bit short. Malacia has been training for a long time. Has he got any minutes in his leg? No, so he's very unlikely. Maybe the bench. But Yoro and Mainu, they're a little bit more optimistic about. But again, probably bench. So I don't think Yoro, Mainu, Malacia, Maguire, Shaw are in any way, shape or form ready to start against Ipswich. You could be in a scenario where 3, maybe 4 of them are on the bench though. So look, they're coming back at the right time. But I do think it's a good point, because the person who messaged me said, you know, everyone's thinking everyone's back fit for Ipswich, but they're not. It's only a week and a half away and they've had no minutes. None of these players have had minutes. So they're not starters. They're not Amorim's going to give a clean slate to everybody, and God knows what his first team's going to be, but certain players just aren't going to be there fitness-wise. Because there is fit, and then there is match fitness, isn't there? Shocked at what Bruno said about Garnacho's non-celebration. These are the players that we don't need. Hoping for a new start under the new manager, says Andrew. Could you expand on that, Andrew? What are you shocked about Bruno saying that Garnacho didn't celebrate because the fans were on him? We don't need players like that. He's 20 years of age. What? We don't need Bruno or we don't need Garnacho? I'll wait on what you mean by that. Dylan McNeil says that playing the 3-4-3 will inevitably strengthen our bench, slowly adding a few more options to it, considering we can't squeeze them all in. Can you call my mate Ash a Ponce with an N, says Luke. Okay. Ritwick says, what are your thoughts on... I've done that one from Ritwick. A little off topic, but please hear me out. Will you be at the Sidemen match at Wembley, says Carl. I don't know, Carl. Look, things change. And if I get asked, I'll do it. If I don't get asked, I'll watch it. I'd like to play in it, but you don't normally hear anything at this stage anyway. So I literally have got nothing I can say. Jay says, 3-4-3, here we go. And Mojo says, Mark, request for a few seconds of your time and help my son, Trinab, to understand why Ruud left. He's really upset about it. We're literally going to talk about that next, Mojo, so don't worry about that. Happy to help. And Dimitri says, what's different from when we signed Erik ten Hag, apart from the ownership and Amorim's style of play? Absolutely love the hoodie, by the way. If you want to get one of these, we do ship them worldwide. I don't get to wear the red one as much because we have a red thing, but actually I think it works quite well. So check that out. Don't forget the Christmas jumper as well, which should be hung up. That's crap marketing. We've only got about, I think we've got about 150 of these left. So as I said, they're limited edition knitted jumpers every year. You can get them shipped worldwide, and yeah, check those out. Very, very nice. Looking forward to starting wearing that, actually. Getting the Christmas tree up. We like the Christmas tree. I'm so sad when the Christmas tree goes down, but we like it when the Christmas tree goes. I might put the Christmas tree up a bit early this year, actually, because anyway, that's not breaking news. Let's go back to Mojo and Ruud van Nistelrooy. Okay, so look, this is quite interesting. Just a couple of things as well, just before we get into this, because there is some transfer stuff as well. We spoke about injuries. We spoke about the 3-4-3. Obviously, get your comments in. Darren Fletcher, Simon Stone, says that... Simon Stone, BBC journalist, says that Darren Fletcher is staying at Manchester United as in a coaching capacity. He is the guy that is seen as the guy that links the academy to the first team. So Darren Fletcher, official statement, is staying at Manchester United. Some people seem to be a little bit perturbed by this. I'm not. I think that when I look at... I never expected that. Darren Fletcher predated Ten Hag, predated Rangnick. I can't remember when Darren Fletcher came in. Was it Ollie days or Mourinho days? I never expected him to be going. I think he's part of the setup there. I think he's quite high up there, actually, as well. So I think Darren Fletcher was never in any jeopardy here. And I don't know why Fletch lives, says Matthew. I think some people are just getting their knickers in a twist about something that was never going to happen. So that Simon Stone clarifying that. On Ruud van Nistelrooy, he's gone. But what we have seen is Garnacho's come out and said things like words to the effect of, the words that you gave to me, I will never share with anybody, but will take for me the rest of my career. Casemiro spoke about him as well, having not posted out about Ten Hag. So obviously the players really liked Ruud van Nistelrooy. It takes me back to the story at the start of last week where it came out, could have been bollocks, that the players really wanted Ruud van Nistelrooy to stay. I mean, this is a great reason for Amorim to get rid of him, and I applaud it. And if the players really did love him, I think it's brilliant that Amorim's got rid of him, because the players don't get listened to. There's a new boss in town, and as much as it... I feel bad for Ruud because he couldn't do any more, but you can't listen to players. Players can't decide who's staying. And... you know, the security blanket needs pulling away. But interestingly, ex-player time, this is what Rio Ferdinand had to say. He said, we've been waiting here for a manager to connect with the players. We've got one right now. Why are we going to get rid of him? He said the players needed that. We're in a time where there was a lot of turbulence. The manager's relationships with some players seemed fractured and irreversible, and the fans seemed to have made their minds up on that was it. A new manager comes in, you always get a bounce, but this seemed a little bit more than that. The players really grew to like him. They appreciate how he informed them of different bits and pieces tactically, individually as a team, and there was a genuine, we want to do well for this guy. So basically Rio Ferdinand saying, we've been waiting for someone to connect with these players. We've got one right now. Why are you going to get rid of him? He did go on to say the biggest sticking point will be the manager in Amorim, and it'll be his decision whether he keeps Ruud or not. But look, you know my stance on this. If Rio Ferdinand says one thing, do the opposite. I mean, that's been proven over the last few years. So if it's to do with football, do the opposite to Rio. Bless him. But I mean, look, this is the difference between being an ex-player and being a fan. I think an ex-player always has their head in the dressing room and always has the player mentality, which is interesting. But a fan is somebody that looks at what's best for the football club and isn't actually, unless you're Player FC, but, you know, the majority of supporters and football fans just want what's best for the team, i.e. Manchester United. So we don't get emotionally attached to what the players are thinking. And, you know, we don't get emotionally attached to ex-colleagues. Remember, Ruud played with Rio. So I couldn't give a toss. Rio Ferdinand's opinion, even though very, very good player for United a long time ago, right here, right now, he's just another Man United fan. He is a Man United fan, isn't he? I think he is. So he's just another Man United fan. And his voice is no different to any of yours. And I think he's completely wrong. I think he's completely wrong. I couldn't give a toss about players getting attached to Ruud. I actually don't think the football was that good. I thought it was okay. But if that's them playing and giving everything for their manager, it was never enough. Never enough. That football on Sunday wasn't amazing. We got the job done. It wasn't amazing against PAOK. We got the job done. It wasn't amazing against Chelsea. So if that's them playing for the manager, well, actually, we need a hell of a lot more than that in relation to style. And I don't think Ruud was going to deliver that. You can't keep him as a coach. Explaining it to Mojo's kid, I really like Ruud van Nistelrooy. I really like what he said. I really like that the players like him. But that's not enough. You're just an interim coach. You're just you're a stopgap. Sentimentality just can't exist after the last 10 years of Manchester United. We've been down this road with Ollie. I'm surprised that, look, I suppose everybody's different. You've got to respect it. But we did this with Ollie. Why would anybody want to do it again? It's like they forget the past. I think the real victim is Ruud van Nistelrooy. I've got no sympathy with the players. I couldn't give a toss about what the players want because at the end of the day, as much as I like them, you are there and you are paid handsomely to do a job for us, for the Man United fans and for the new manager. So Ruud's gone. Ten Hag's gone. They wouldn't be going anywhere if you'd actually played well. For the previous manager, Ruud would still be here. Let's not forget, Ruud van Nistelrooy hasn't come in from nowhere for 2 weeks. Ruud van Nistelrooy came in the summer. So, you know, if you want Ruud to stay and you think he was really good for your career, maybe you should have done a little bit better in the first 3 months of the season. Ruud's gone, and Amorim is right to move him on because Amorim's in charge. And I tell you what's going to happen. All these Rio Ferdinands and all these United players who are like, we shouldn't have got rid of Ruud. Guarantee you, in 2 or 3 weeks, when we've won a few games under Amorim, they'll love Amorim more than they loved Ruud. Because footballers are very, very self-centred and very quick to move on. I remember speaking to Paul Ince on this channel a few years ago, and he said, I was at United, they were all my mates, I went to Inter and didn't really speak to them as much anymore because you move on. You know, you're not at Man United anymore, you're at Inter Milan, and that's what happens. And they'll move on from Ruud really, really quickly. And rightly so. And hopefully Ruud will move on. But Amorim's in charge and he cannot use Ruud van Nistelrooy. But I'm not surprised that ex-players are going, we should have kept him, because they're very rarely correct. And also I think they're very biased when it's a player that they've played with before. I'd really like to hear about your opinion about how we should expect any different from when we signed Ten Hag, says Demetris. What's different about Ten Hag and Amorim? I think somebody's already said it this morning. The biggest thing, and it's a huge thing, is that it's not personality, it's not style of play. I think that when Ten Hag came in from Ajax, there was a lot of excitement, and Amorim coming in from Sporting, there's a lot of excitement. It's only recency bias that says, wow, Amorim's better than Ten Hag. When they're both coming in with a lot of excitement. Obviously, Ten Hag has failed, so there'll be more excitement around Amorim, but logically, I would say they're both coming in with a lot of excitement. But the big difference here is one of them had the Glazers and Arnold and Murta on top of them, and Amorim's got Ineos, and I think that is going to be massive because he's got a structure. He's got a footballing structure that's accountable. And I think I don't think you can underestimate how big that is. And also, just because Ten Hag failed doesn't mean Amorim would fail anyway. Different manager, different system. But I think that is the thing. Rizal says, are you going to miss Ruud van Nistelrooy? No. Aren't I harsh? No, I'm not, because maybe it's just life experience. I mean, these things happen. Like, relationships break up because the other person, you don't like them anymore. You just see them as a friend. You might have been on holiday with them. You might have been going out with them for years. Things change. Your best mate at work moves to another company, gets a promotion. Like, these things happen. Sentimentality, get rid of it. It's about what's best for you and what's best for your team. We can't keep going down the sentimentality route. We've got to go down the efficiency route. Will the under-21s be switched to 3-4-3? Very good question, Ome. We'll have to wait and see. Andrew CJS says, we don't need Garnacho mentality. Feels very snowflake, and Bruno shouldn't promote this kind of mentality or comments to the public. It's contagious. Oh, well, there we go. What do you think about that? We don't need Garnacho's mentality. Feels very snowflake, and Bruno shouldn't promote it. Well, I completely disagree with this, but the only thing I'll give you because look, this is not the Mark Goldbridge show. This is the United Stand, and we do allow, as long as it's not toxic and abusive, people to have different opinions, because that's where good conversation comes from. I don't think Bruno should have put it out there. I do agree with that. I don't think it's the end of the world, but I don't think Bruno should put it out there, because Bruno telling the United fan base that a player didn't celebrate because he felt that the fans had turned on him, I just think it's a bit melodramatic. I know why he's done it. He's done it to protect a player, but we're Manchester United. David Beckham in 1998 got people, putting up dummies of him hanging from bridges. People singing stuff about his wife, being booed absolutely everywhere. If you play for Manchester United, you will be criticised. Even if you play well, you will be criticised because people are jealous. So, I don't know whether Bruno's done the right thing in the sense that he said this player's vulnerable and, he's feeling down because people have had a go at him. In the modern world, I get it, because it's like, oh, that's not very nice. And it isn't very nice. But actually, in the elite world of competition, you can't show that vulnerability. But he's 20 years of age, and I think Bruno's just trying to protect him. From the Garnacho side, he hasn't got a weak mentality. He's a kid, and he's got a lot going on. And you know what? I think we should be protecting players. I don't think we should be saying they've got a weak mentality. I don't think he's got a weak mentality. I don't think any player who makes it to the top level has a weak mentality. But PR and focus and everything like that is scrutinised, isn't it? I don't think Bruno making a big deal of it is necessarily the right thing. If I was to agree with anything you've said, because what's Bruno saying? You can't criticise players, mate. This is elite football. Like, we want to win the Premier League. We don't want to be school sports day getting a bloody winner's medal for finishing in the relegation zone. Like, we want to win, and if you want to win, then criticism is part of the game. What I find strange is that I've always said that Garnacho's got the highest potential ceiling in our squad, and I still think that. There's a lot of people who really like Garnacho. There's a lot of United fans at Old Trafford who are singing his name when he scores a worldie. So again, the sad thing about it is, and I heard Troy Deeney talking about this, and he's absolutely spot on. He said, if I was in that dressing room, I'd be taking Garnacho aside and saying, mate, get used to it. Because if you can't get used to it, this game's not for you. You will get criticised. You'll get criticised when you're playing well. You'll get criticised when you play bad. You'll get criticism from rivals. You'll get told off by your manager. You'll get shouted out by your teammates. If you can't deal with it, this game's not for you, no matter how talented you are. And I sort of agree with that. And that's where I think the ex-player thing actually is quite useful, because they know, you know, people who've played the game, they know what that's all about. But the flip side of it is he's 20 years of age. And I think there's a fantastic player there. And it's a shame he didn't celebrate. And hopefully a little bit of a break, a little bit of focus. Haters going to hate. You know, his role model is Ronaldo and Messi, isn't it? I mean, God, Ronaldo's had more haters than anybody in the history of football. And he uses it to spur him on and drive him. So, but he's 20, you know. You can't carry... I think about when I started doing this. It's not comparable, but when I started doing this and I saw people saying, you know, wishing I was dead and stuff like that, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe people can say stuff like that. It's really bothering me. Oh my God, I might pack this in. Oh, you know, I can't do anything. Somebody I've never met on social media, or somebody I don't care about hates me and wishes I was dead. And I'd be like, oh my God, I can't deal with this. What am I going to do? Oh, I'm getting heart palpitations. I don't think I can carry on. Why could somebody say such a horrible thing? 10 years later, I get a hell of a lot worse. And I'm sort of like, I don't care. I don't care, because that's a reflection on that person. It's not a reflection on me. I'll focus on the good people, the people that I actually care about. The people I don't care about, you know, you go and swim in your own shit of toxicity, because it's not impacting me. And I think that's maturity, isn't it? And Garnacho's 20 years of age, so, you know, cutting some slack. Patrick Lynch says, Rio's comments just confirm why Ruud has to go. Can't have someone undermining the new coach, even subconsciously. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, Rio's comments, in very definition, are saying that Ruud had a good connection with the players. Why would you get rid of him? If I'm a new manager, I don't want somebody having a good connection with the players. I want the connection with the players. In my opinion, we did the right thing with Ruud van Nistelrooy. Yeah, I feel really sorry for him, Steve Livingston. I think you're absolutely spot on. He says, I feel sorry for him regardless. He's done his CV, no harm at all. He's come into a club 3 months ago and he's out. And he's not really done anything wrong. It's just circumstances. It's the ruthless nature of football. And I don't think United have been ruthless enough for the last decade. He is collateral. It's really unfortunate. I really have sympathy with him. But honestly, I'm sort of like, we've needed to do this for a long time. It's a shame it's happened to Ruud, but we've needed to do it for a long time. CJ says, if the story about players loving Ruud is true, this is true player power by Amorim, and it's also a power play by Amorim. No more jobs for the boys. Time to work and be professional. Would you move Luke Shaw to a left centre-back, says Papa Green? Mate, we've got to move him off the treatment table before we move him onto a football pitch. For me, Luke Shaw is a question mark. In fact, I saw something today about how important Mason Mount is going to be in an Amorim system. And I thought, I get it. Luke Shaw and Mason Mount could be fantastic players in an Amorim system. I completely agree. Smash alike. But the first and biggest barrier is not ability, it's availability. And I think, you know, yesterday morning we were talking about Nkunku. 44% of you would sign Nkunku, even though I read out a list longer than my Christmas shopping list. Food shopping list, by the way. I'm not spoiled. I'm talking cheese, crisps, drink, chocolate, you know, nibbles. It's a big list when you do your Christmas shopping list. But Nkunku's injury list was longer than that. And still 44% of you were going, sign Nkunku. I'm not criticising you. I'm just saying, we moan about injuries and we talk about, oh, how good Luke Shaw could be as a left-sided centre-back. He hasn't played virtually for a whole year. I know he's not played since February, but people forget, at the end of last year, he was injured from, September till Christmas. In the last 12 months, he's virtually been injured for 12 months. So when people talk to me, can Luke Shaw play as a left-sided centre-back? If he's fit. Could Mason Mount be a good player for Amorim behind the striker in those two positions? If he's fit. But I'm not going to start predicting anything until they stay fit. I mean, look, Bruno Fernandes stays fit year after year. So does Dalot. Most of our players stay. Marcus Rashford's been fit for a very long time. There are other players as well. Fitness is not an ability. Fitness is not, pat on the back. Fitness is to be expected from a professional footballer. And we've got players that can't bloody stay fit. So, look, maybe Mason Mount can work at United. Maybe Luke Shaw can work at United. But they've got to stay fit for 2 months. 2 months, not 2 weeks. That's the big thing. Dara says, I'm listening while I'm out pike fishing. This is the one. We'll focus on them pikes, mate, because they're quite big, those fish, aren't they? I mean, watch what you're doing. Imagine if he has a few bad games for Argentina, says Michael Wright, talking about Garnacho. Double D says, we've all been down watching what's going on with the club the last few years. We still support this team and we take it on the chin. Players need to do the same. Learn from the haters and be stronger, says Double D. Thank you very much for that, mate. I can't wait to see what Amarin does with this formation, says Chris. Change is a good thing. I want the best team picking rather than the biggest individuals. Luke Birch says, you've made my day. Cyril out. And I think Bruno did the right thing. He's come out as captain and protected a young player. Bruno shouts at him on the pitch. I don't think it's the criticism. It's more the hate and personal attacks. He's still a kid, says Sean Turner. Yes, mate. I think, Sean, in an idealistic world, you are absolutely correct. But we know we don't live in that world. And we know we live in a real world. And even after Bruno has come out and Garnacho hasn't celebrated, there are still people going out their way to say bad things about him. And, you know, I'm like you, Sean. I wish they weren't. I think we should be nurturing and protecting players. But I'm also realistic. There's nothing I or you or anybody else can say to stop people thinking they're justified in saying Garnacho is shit or Rasmus is shit or Rashford is shit or Bruno is shit. They're stubborn people with their own opinions and they're not going to change. And what I'm saying is, in the footballing world, in the real world, if you put your head out there as a, you know, as somebody that's in front of an audience, you will always get hate. You're always going to get it. And that's what I'm saying. I agree with you that Bruno coming out and doing it isn't a problem, but in reacting into the previous chat who said it was a problem, I would concede and say Bruno coming out and doing that, it doesn't necessarily, it's not going to stop it, is it? It's not going to stop it. And some people, as Troy Deeney said, will look at it and go, hold on a minute, mate. You know, if you can't deal with this game's not for you. But Bruno is trying to protect a young player. That's what he's trying to do. Most of us are older than Garnacho. We all struggle with issues around us. He's a kid and he needs to learn. Bruno understands this and is given a shoulder, says Danny yesterday. I think I said it yesterday. At 20 years of age, I'd just moved to Dublin and I'd been there for a year. And I felt like a fish out of water because living in a different country, albeit Ireland's very close to England, but they're different countries. I've never been there before, and it was great. But there were certain things I wouldn't have been able to deal with at 20. You know, I can move into a different country, I can start a job, I can, you know, make new friends, go out drinking, etc. But dealing with the British media and the Man United fan base, and, you know, playing in front of, it's just, I think people run away with the fact that also footballers live in a bubble. What I was like at 20 is very different to what Garnacho's like at 20 because I've lived life. You know, I've been down the local pub, I've been refused drink, I've had a cigarette. You know, I'm not living in a bubble where everyone's going, here's 30 grand a week at 16. You know, they're young and also they're not necessarily exposed to real life because, as I said before, footballers are in academies at 10. And once you're in that academy and you're going through the levels, they protect you and they look after you. And you've got an agent at 14. They live in a rich bubble, says Freddie. So they're not, and everybody's telling them how great they are. I mean, people say this about Rashford. The people around him, he doesn't seem to be able to deal with criticism and reflect because he's probably got people around him telling, oh, they're just haters, Marcus. You're amazing, you know. And that's no good for anybody. No good for anybody. The amount of people I've met in my life who aren't football people, who, you know, maybe come from a rich background or spoilt parents who just told them they're amazing. I mean, you'll have done it. You'll have had a work colleague or a school colleague who, no, they're not necessarily rich, but their mum and dad are the sort of parents that have told them that you're just the best. You're amazing. Nobody else compares to you. You can do anything. You are the best. Don't let anything get in your way. You are the best. And they end up being fuck-ups. Because they've got no concept of manners or other people or the real world or life's not fair. And I think that's the prime example of some modern footballers. They grow up in a world where everybody wants a piece of the pie. These people around them, they're not around them because they genuinely think they're the best thing since sliced bread. They're around them because they want a slice of the pie. They want a bit of the money, they want a bit of the glamour. And that's the thing, you talk to some footballers, you talk to other footballers, you can tell the grounded ones. I mean, look, it doesn't even play for us. I was very impressed with when I met Rasmus, by the way, and obviously he'd only just come to Man United, so you don't know how that changes being at Man United. But one of the players that impresses me the most is Anthony Gordon. I've only seen 3 or 4 interviews with him, but I think his mentality just comes beaming through every interview I hear, and not everybody is going to be like that. We've all been down watching Cave, done that one. I can't wait to see what Amorim does. You've made the day. I think Bruno did the right thing. Darren Taylor says, have you seen the thumbnail for Ben Foster's football fill-in this week? Shout out for Ben Foster's football fill-in. Says Garnacho isn't a team player. Oh, you're trying to drop me into something here. Look, obviously, love Ben Foster, love the show. It's a shame I don't get to go on it anymore because of the United Stand and my podcast. But I'd be having a word about that. I don't care whether it's a mate or somebody I don't respect. I don't agree with that. And I think some people look at Garnacho and just see something that, isn't there. He's not a team player. Even if he wasn't a team player, at 20 years of age, he's 20 years of age. I mean, I can't get tired of telling you that the upside of age is experience. So I was probably the age of many of you when Cristiano Ronaldo burst on the scene 20 years ago. And I remember it vividly. We didn't have social media, so you can't check my tweets, but I remember it vividly. The jeering at Old Trafford, the impatience, the mocking in the media. They take the piss out of his hair. We had Fantasy Football Weekly with Badil and Skinner, and he was a subject of being mocked all the time. And he didn't pass. And he used to get into a lot of trouble for it from Sir Alex and Roy Keane and everyone else like that. I just don't get, if that's true, because I haven't seen it. Garnacho's not a team player. Well, I don't see the evidence of that. And he's 20 years of age, learning the game. Cristiano Ronaldo did worse in a Man United shirt. And Vinicius Jr., as Dee says, these young players need moulding into team players. It can't be a criticism, surely. Can't be. And I don't understand the look, at the end of the day, if I run my business in my 40s and I walk into my business and see a 20-year-old who is learning the job and I go, you're not a team player, and humiliate him in front of everybody else, it's a bit wrong, isn't it? What's the difference? What are we doing here? Like, whether he's 22 or 18, he's still learning the game with an immense amount of talent. And we're going, you're shit. You can't do this. You're not a team player. It's incredible. And especially as Man United fans, he's in our club. We should be nurturing him. And we've got a history of doing it. How do you see Garnacho fitting into the 3-4-3 system, says Ben? I'm very excited to see how he's going to fit in, because I actually think he's one of the players that's in a problematic area, because if you're going to play wide, you're effectively going to have to play in a back 5 at times, which means you're going to have to work really hard. And if you're going to play centrally, you're going to be playing behind a striker, where again, it's going to be a very different job. I think Garnacho and Rashford and Ahmad are in positions where they're either going to have to work and change ridiculously, working hard down the wing, or they're going to have to change and be more technical centrally. But I think it can enhance him as a player. Shaw needs to go. He seems to prefer England, and I dislike his attitude, like when he blamed Ten Hag for not managing his injury properly. Jose was right, says William. I think the thing where Luke Shaw's made a mistake is that he blamed United for not handling his injury correctly in February, and then he goes to the Euros injured for his own personal glory, and then misses the next 4 months. So it's just a bit hypocritical, isn't it? But look, I've always liked him as a player. And unless I know the player, I treat them as a player. So I will criticise them for what, is very obviously bad choices. But if he comes back and stays fit and plays well, it's a win. But I don't think he will. I just can't see. I don't think his body is capable of staying fit anymore. Just looking at age and recent injury history and history of other players. DJ says, can I get a shout out for my son who had to be hospitalised for depression and anxiety? It has made me really down. I know you talk about mental health sometimes and really need some support from you guys. Well, hopefully we can get some support for DJ there and his son. Look, these things happen. It doesn't make it any better, but I think a lot of people suffer with some sort of anxiety and depression. I think everybody does. And they can be very, very overwhelming emotions. You know, I've certainly had it at times in the past where you just have so many things going on and you're waking up in the middle of the night and you're like, what's going on? Anxiety, you know, black clouds of depression. The best thing you do is in the best place and talk and, you know, try and find the things that alleviate that anxiety, you know, try and talk about those things, try and do things because it's a hard spiral to get out of when you're feeling anxious, which is why they say do breathing techniques. But actually, I think put a good film on that you like. You know, take your mind off something. Focus on the good things. Off topic, I found a Lego Old Trafford, and before they sadly knock it down, keep up the great work. Great from Vienna. Apparently, it's been I don't even know where mine is. I've got my Home Alone house. I don't know where I have got the Old Trafford Lego set because I bought it in COVID, but apparently it's been discontinued. But I don't know where mine is. Oh yeah, just on Antony. Oh God. I mean, look, people have got to eat. Let's not take a pop at people. But I woke up this morning and I've got a message about Antony. What are your thoughts on Antony? And I go, what are you talking about? Oh, it's all over X this morning that sources are saying that Antony's not very happy at United and will look to leave unless things change, but he wants to stay. And I went, basically no update then. No, it's all over. It's all over social media this morning. And I'm like, sources are saying he wants to leave if things don't change, but if they do change, he wants to stay. Yeah. So basically no update then. Player wants to stay if he's playing, but if it continues not to get picked, he'll go. Yeah. Okay, so that's not applicable to Antony then. That's applicable to Casemiro, Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof, every fucking player that plays the game. Come on, it's not an update, is it? But what I would say about Antony is that yeah, he's down the pecking order, but we have a new manager, and can he get up the pecking order? There are two very unique positions in that team. He can't play him behind a striker. He's not technical enough. He's too one-footed. He'd be an absolute bloody nightmare centrally. But there is a right wing midfielder position and there is a left wing midfielder position in this 3-4-3. You have to work ridiculously hard and you have to be a good player. I think he's too one-footed. And I know there are players in the past that are one-footed, and I didn't think it was going to be a massive problem when we bought him. I actually was really excited. But he is ridiculously one-footed. It's so predictable. Like there is no uncertainty when you're defending against Antony. It's cut inside and shoot, and it's control with your left foot. It's cross with your left foot. It's absolutely everything. So, look, he has a clean slate, and who knows what's going to happen. But I think with Antony, it's got nothing to do with the fidget spinner. It's got nothing to do with his attitude. It's got nothing to do with his injuries. I just think this is a Kagawa Mkhitaryan issue where technically he's actually not good enough for the Premier League. I think Memphis Depay struggled with it as well. There are, Pepe at Arsenal. There is a good player there at a certain level, and we've seen it time and time and time since the Premier League started. These certain players come in and do really well. Certain players come in for good money, and you think they're going to tear it up, and they just don't work. Now, I might be wrong. I hope I am wrong, because it's easier to keep Antony and use him than to have to try and sell him and replace him. But I've said it for a while now. No hate, no agenda, no abuse. I gave him 2 years. I really wanted him to do well. I think it's a technical issue. I don't think he's good enough for Manchester United or the Premier League. So I don't expect to see him keeping Ahmad, Garnacho or Rashford out the team, which is what he's going to have to do. Or Delo or Mazraoui if they're going to play at wing back. I just don't see it. So I think he will be moving on, but He's got a chance. He's got a chance. I think, as well, the January transfer window is going to be significant. It's not going to be long before we start doing videos talking about transfers, of course, and players that we might go for. I would say one thing. One thing with a bit off the end of it. First of all, we will be active in the January transfer window. I think getting rid of Ruud, bringing in his own coaching staff, is going to be a big hint that we're going to buy players in January. Because if we kept Ruud, that saves money. If we'd kept Ruud, let's work with what we've got. Getting rid of Ruud spends money to get rid of him, but also says we are determined to make this new world work. So it's out with the old and it's in with the new. Now, if you're doing that with your coaching staff, I think it's definitely going to happen with players. I think we're going to see that. Well, I hope we're going to see it, but I think we're finally going to see the ruthlessness with players as well. And as part of that ruthlessness, I don't think they'll waste a January transfer window with a guy that actually only has a certain number of transfer windows in a 2.5-year contract. In a 2.5-year contract, he's only got 3 transfer windows. He's got January, the summer, the following January, and then the next summer after that, he'll only have a year left on his contract. So are you going to spend big or are you going to get rid of him? So he's got 3 transfer windows, really, including this January one, to get the next contract renewal, because no manager goes into a final year. So, and also I think it's out with the old and in with the new. So I think we will be active in the January transfer window. The thing I would say about that is, because the next thing people will say is, who are we going to buy? I haven't got a bloody clue. And nobody's got a clue. Just like the summer transfer window, I don't think we will know. It might be a 22-year-old from the French league. It might be one of Sporting's, well, it won't be in January. It might be a 17-year-old who's we've got out of Bayern. I don't know, but I think we will be bringing players in. And I think people are so locked in on what Sporting players are we going to buy, because we bought players from Ajax for Ten Hag, and we might buy players from Sporting in the summer. But we have a scouting network. You know, we've brought 3 17-year-olds in the summer, as well as spending a couple of £100 million on more well-known players. We have a scouting network. We have what looks like a very decent recruitment team. And I think we will bring players in January. I just don't think we know who they're going to be. Where do you predict we'll finish under Amorim in the Premier League, says Sanil? I don't want anybody to be doing this, because I just think it's... If it's light-hearted, I'll tell you. But if this is to be a standard, it's dangerous. And what I mean by that is anybody who's looking at the league table and going, we could get top 4, is going to start thinking we should get top 4 subconsciously. And then when we don't get it, there'll be negativity towards Amorim. I would say this season, it doesn't actually matter. As long as we're in Europe next season in some way, shape or form, and it's not the Conference League, it doesn't really matter. If we're in the Europa League next year, we're in the Europa League. I think getting in the Champions League would be nice, but you can't say we're a mess and then say we'll be in the Champions League next year. You've got to earn that. And you can't say we need to get rid of the deadwood and say we'll be in the Champions League next year. This is the whole point about patience. If he can get us in the Champions League next year, fantastic. If he doesn't, it doesn't mean he's a failure. It means the job is difficult. And also, we're learning a different system. I'd really like us to win the Europa League. That's what I would like us to do. But there are still teams in there that could cause us problems. Top 4, I don't see it. I know it's only 4 points, but it's about 10 teams. And I don't think we're better than Brighton. I don't think we're better than Villa. And I don't think we're better than Spurs. And Liverpool, Arsenal and Man City will be in there. So I think if we could get top 6, it would be very good. If he gets top 4, it'll be incredible. So the Europa League is where I'm looking at it. I think that's the priority, because it's a cup competition and these players on their day are quite good in a cup competition, and it gets us into the Europa League, into the Champions League. But I'm not setting any standards. I mean, I might be in the minority, but I actually don't care if we have a bad first season and then have a good 2-3 seasons, because every manager that's failed has had that short-term glow up and then long-term failure. I'd rather have a short-term pain and a long-term gain. But that means I'm probably in the minority there. We've got Arsenal and Man City in his first month as well. Do you really think we're going to beat them? I don't. I don't think we'll lose both, funnily enough, but I don't think we're going to beat both of them because I think we're a long way behind. Patrick Lynch says, Fivell was with Red Bull, known for... And also, can I just say as well, it might not be a bad thing to lose a couple of games before New Year. Because what's on New Year? The January transfer window. If we want to make a change, what's... Answer me this. What's better for United? Amorim comes in and we win every game until New Year, including Arsenal and Man City, with these players. Or Amorim comes in and we struggle in a couple of games before January with these players. The truth is better. If we go and win every single game with Amorim, it'd be great, but I don't trust the players. I know they can do that for a bit. I would rather some real results in there as well, so he knows the truth. Do you think we have the quality to win the Europa League? I do. I do, United Edits, because the only teams in the Europa League that I think look half decent are teams like Spurs, who by themselves are very, inconsistent. Sammy, welcome. Thank you very much for your super chat. Patrick Lynch says that Fivell was with Red Bull, known for gegenpress. He'll be vital to helping scout players capable of high-intensity football. Absolutely. A lot of people have said about Agate and the link to Amorim and how that's really, really good. But you're absolutely spot on. There is a very good point to be said about Fivell and where he was working before, because he's very much used to that high-intensity recruitment, and that will go hand in hand with a lot of what Amorim wants. Daniel Matthew was gifted a membership as well. Thank you very much to Sanil. How many of our best players would start for City? The answer is none, and that's the problem, says Kellen. We've said this before, you're absolutely correct. How many of our best players would start for City? Mainu, maybe. Garnacho, maybe. I'm saying potentially maybe because, look, I don't actually think Doku or Grealish down the left-hand side for Man City are world beaters, and I'm not unconvinced that Kobe Mainoo's got the ability to get into a Man City team at some point. But right here, right now, even though Man City are struggling, none of our players get in their team. Mazraoui's a good shout. Actually, so the chat... Yeah, Mazraoui's a good shout. Because he's better than Kyle Walker. That just shows you what a good signing Mazraoui is. I mean, But you know why Mazraoui gets in there as a shout? Why does Mazraoui get in there as a shout? Because he's bloody consistent. He's the only player who consistently plays well. And he stands out like a sore thumb, yet it should be expected. The lack of consistent performances at Man United is incredible. Mazraoui jumps out because he's actually consistent. Not because he plays 10 out of 10 every week, but because he plays 7 out of 10 every week. Would you care if Garnacho left Man United, says United Edits? Yes. I don't care if he goes at 25 to Real Madrid, because I think that's written in the stars. I'm prepared for that, and we'll get good money out of it. But I'd be very cared if he left. I'd be very worried if he left now, because you want to see the journey complete. And I don't want him to go to Real Madrid, by the way. I'm just like a lot of people. I think that it might be a pathway that looks a little bit logical. I bet there are a few apples on Amorim's desk today, says Harvey. Yeah. But hopefully he'll see through that. Who do you start in the pivot and the 2 number 10s, says Salman? We're actually going to do a video about this, mate. So I'm going to leave that for now because we're actually going to work through this together. Daniel Hodgson says, hi, Mark. Flying from Australia and watching at Old Trafford for the first time against Bodo Glimt, which is Amorim's first home game. Will the atmosphere be good? Yes. First home game, regardless of who the opposition is, it will be rocking 100%. I nearly said Wednesday night under the lights, but it'll be a Thursday, won't it? Absolute legends this morning. Make sure you smash the like and subscribe. We are actually expecting an interview to drop, official interview from Amorim from the club. Obviously, it's not going to be as juicy as a press-led one, but be a little bit PR friendly, won't it? But we're expecting that to drop at some point as well. Take care, everyone. Smash a like. Make sure you subscribe, by the way. I'm not pointing at the Christmas jumper, although if you want to get one of those, they're going very quick, and when they're gone, they're gone. It's a limited run. You can get them worldwide as well, so get your order in early. Subscribe. We're on the road to 1 million. We're on the road to 2 million. No one's ever done it before as a club football content channel. So make sure you subscribe. We're on the road for it. Thanks everyone for watching. Speak to you in a bit.